essentially we're not doing anything different than they've been doing for several decades previously. And the conditions in the community were still declining. Community amenities that people have been asking for a long time were not being developed, and no effort in their direction either. So I felt I needed, with the experience that I have, I needed to run for office and fix the problems that the city had. And the problems the city had have developed over decades. It wasn't in the previous administration or the previous administration to that. It really was a culture that developed at City Hall and continued through the decades. So knowing that and understanding how city government works and how it works in Manteca, I felt I was the best choice to fix the problems. So I ran in 2008 and did not get elected. I think at that time it was for council. 2 years later I ran for mayor, did not get elected. Ran for council again, did not get elected. It took me 5 tries to finally get elected. And you have to understand why it took 5 tries. This community had been managed for many decades by a narrow group of people who took it in a certain direction and virtually did not allow anybody into their group. So I had to break the ceiling in order to get elected. And the reason I got elected is because the community changed. It was no longer the small farming town and the small community that was only 10 or 12,000 people. We were at that point reaching 75 and 80,000, 85,000. So the new people, like yourselves, that have moved here, wanted something that they were accustomed to in the Bay Area, the amenities that were missing in this community. So I ran for office. I was finally elected, as mayor. And because of that position, I was able to start changing the culture at City Hall and the focus of the council. Unfortunately, when I got elected, the council itself was made of people who also wanted to improve the conditions of the community. And I was able to change the focus in the future of this community with their help. And through that process, the people that were department heads at City Hall, because I asked them to solve the problem several times at council meetings, finally, the 3rd time I said, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it for you. So I started that process. Many of them left. Many of them left because of personnel issues. Many of them were asked to leave. So today, we have a management people at City Hall. They're young people, many of them millennials, who think out of the box, want to solve problems, and work towards solving problems, as opposed to the previous administrations that were complacent. They grew into their positions and simply did the same thing over year after year after year. One of the first things I did was to ask for a study of the financial status of the community, because I knew myself that things were not getting done and there had to be a reason for it. As it turned out in that study, the city was then 4 years ago and is today in poor financial shape. A lot of the reasons why we, the council, could not address the community amenities that were missing, or additional police, or additional fire, or other things that needed, like fixing the roads and stuff like that, because there was insufficient funds in the budget to deal with those issues. So, in order to deal with all the other problems that need to be fixed, you have to set a solid financial foundation to build on. So, that was our first task, is to take care of the financial situation in order for us to start dealing with all the other issues and problems. So that's where we sit today. So, let me say this, and then I'll conclude. Gary and I work together. We have very similar perspectives on the community and where the future is and everything else. And that's not to say that we're, hitched together, but the rest of the community, or the rest of the council, has basically the same view of the future for this community. So we all work well together. The only difference I feel between the two of us, is that I'm 71 years old, and I have a life experience much greater. And I worked at City Hall for 34 years. I have a great deal of experience, and I need 4 more years to finish my list of things.
All right.
Okay?
Can't put those in their property.
Yeah.
Take them with you.
All right. First of all, yes, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight and taking some valuable time of your night to come and hear both of us. Also for making this happen and reaching out to us and actually being willing to put this on. And, Mayor Cantu has said a lot of things, and definitely it's been a challenge and it's been a battle for what we're working through. So let me kind of start with telling you more about myself, where I came to be. I definitely have not necessarily had the experience that Ben has had, because I haven't been alive for that long. But I will say this, is that, and I'm going to keep on using that, Mr. Cantu, as long as I can. So me personally, I come from a family of small business owners. I started, my dad originally started, he used to work for a company called Winchell's, which was the Krispy Kremes of that day. I'm a millennial myself, so it's a whole different situation, but he started and had his own donut shop, kind of went into that, then went into the convenience store business, and that's kind of where I came to be. We own a store here in town. We've owned it for 36 years. That convenience store is basically where I grew up. So I grew up in small business my whole life. Actually started working at the store since I was in 3rd grade. So I was the little kid in the back that used to fill up shelves, and I couldn't reach the top shelf, so I used to stand on milk crates to get up there and put stuff up. And my ability on that was really because my dad worked from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. We couldn't afford any help, so my way of seeing my dad was to go work with him. And that's where I get my work ethic, of why I am where I am today. I grew up in Lathrop as a kid. I went to Lathrop School. Then I went to Sierra High School here in town. Graduated in 2000. I was the millennial class. And then I went to University of Pacific here locally. So I went to college locally here and never left the area. Came out with a double bachelor's out of there in business, in real estate and law, and then also a biochem degree. Because I'm Indian, so I'm supposed to be a doctor or an engineer, and it did not work out. I actually failed, because not only am I not a doctor or engineer, I'm trying to was a politician on top of that, so it's just all bad for me right now. So came out of that, went into my day job, because we only get paid $600 a month to do this, by the way. My day job, I'm a real estate broker. So I've been doing that now for about 18 years. The council really started for me in a different path. I originally got appointed to the planning commission for our city. And the way that kind of happened was that there was an opportunity, because I was a small business owner already, I understood development. They thought it was a perfect mix to represent both of those communities, and I got appointed to planning commission back when Mayor Willie Weatherford was our mayor at that time. Sitting on planning commission, one of the things I saw back then was that I was the youngest planning commissioner ever in the city at that point, and unfortunately, planning commission at that time was becoming a rubber stamp. And Mayor Cantu could probably attest to a lot of this too, is that projects used to just come in and it was an automatic, sounds great, see you later, goes back out. And we really started working hard and pushing the envelope and saying, hey, you know what, we were to go. Actually, I used to go visit the projects and look, how is it gonna affect our neighborhoods? How is it gonna affect the area before we go vote on this project? And those kind of things is what kind of changed. I remember one of my first planning commission meetings, and the development was coming and there was nobody there. The only people there were just staff presenting to us. And I'm asking, like, where's the developer? Where's their engineer? Where's all their people? I got questions. And I remember that first one, we actually postponed it and asked for everybody to be there. So since then, every development comes in, everybody shows up because there's questions. From that point on, a lot of the issues that Mayor Cantu also did touch on is that a lot of times we would push and change things at the planning commission, and then whatever recommendations we gave, that gets pushed up to the council for the final recommendation and the vote. And it would get changed back. And it's because there was individuals, unfortunately, that were there continuously doing the same thing over and over again. And that's really what started me to want to run for city council. And this was back in 2016. So 2016 I ran. I was, actually a lot of people didn't give me a chance at all, because there was a lot of people that, already were running or already been part of this process. So a new kid on the block is probably not the best person, but we worked hard. I got elected at that time and I'm actually, to this day, I'm still the youngest person elected to our city council. We ran again in 2020 and got re-elected, ended up with actually the highest votes ever received in the city of Manteca. I currently am actually the longest tenured council member on our council currently, but I'm also still the youngest on the council. So I'm the youngest and the most tenured. Now, kind of moving forward to where we are today, what we're moving forward to is, let's talk about some of the issues and some of the things that we would like to bring. Right on top of it, a lot of people talk about it, everybody, is homelessness. Homelessness is not just a Manteca issue, it is a citywide, countywide, nationwide issue. And whatever we're doing today is not enough. We gotta do something. And Mayor Cantu will agree with this also. We've worked hard to push to have a navigation center here in the city. And why a navigation center? There's a lot of conversations about, there's been all this talk about, if you bring a navigation center, or you build a shelter, it will bring more homeless to our city, and it's gonna cause all of these problems in the city. Well, first, we tackled that. One of the biggest things we did is we worked with our county partners and looked at all the major cities in San Joaquin County, so meaning Tracy, Stockton, Lodi, and we convinced everybody to build one. So the first issue was, hey, you build it, more will come. Well, if every city is building one, why would that homeless person leave their city to go to the next city over when they already have the services in their own community? So that was the first one. Then it's also, what is an navigation center? It's not just a place to get free food and take a shower. No, we're talking about a way to help individuals actually become independent. So, they get the social services, the mental health, the drug rehabilitation, all of the different services that are job placements within a facility. It also allows us to take all the things that are out there. Today people hang out in this park or that place, and you get nonprofits throughout the city that come and they say, they go feed individuals in our park. And then, 3 hours later, another church or somebody comes and they give them clothes or they feed them. Well, what happens is sometimes they get fed 5-6 times a day, and all the extra stuff that they can't use ends up being trashed in our city. And this brings and it creates a centralized location where all the services and everything can come to one place. And that's why we're pushing it. Now, the other part was, how are we gonna pay for it? That was the next part. So we worked hard this year, and we worked all the way with our Susan Eggman's office and our assembly members' offices. And we got a state grant for the city of Manteca for $16 million. It's the largest grant the city's ever received. And that is gonna help us actually pay for the facility and actually build it and actually start putting a dent into the homelessness issue. Now, so we took care of build it and more will come. How are we gonna pay for it? Then finally, now that we have that, what it allows us to do, if you look at the legalities of, the Martin versus Boise case and the sleeping in our public grounds, what this is gonna allow us to do is now that if we have a facility in beds within our community, now we can enforce an anti-camping ordinance. And we can truly, PD can now go out there and give these individuals options, saying, you either come to the shelter where we have a facility, or you're gonna leave, or you're gonna get cited and arrested. We can't do that legally today because we don't have a facility. That's the end-all goal with the shelter. Now, we only didn't just look at, hey, we're gonna put a shelter navigation center in place, but we're looking at an all-encompassing plan in this location where we're gonna build transitional housing, we're gonna build affordable housing, because a lot of times what happens is individuals go into places and they come out, there's nowhere else to go afterwards, and they end up back on the street, and then all the work that you've done is lost, and all the money and the effort. Well, we're gonna give them a plan, the next step, so that way their goal is to come from one end of this place and end up the other and be independent and have jobs and productive citizens of our community. So that's my spiel on homelessness. I will give you another one, is the other big thing is people talk about public safety. I don't know how much time I have. I'm good? Okay. Public safety. We all want to hire more police officers. We want to make sure and ensure the safety of our public and our whole community. But it all comes down to budgets. It all comes down to money. How much money and where we're going to get the funds. Currently, our police department, our public safety budget is 64% of our total general fund. Where are we going to get, what are you willing to cut to hire more police officers or hire more public safety? Well, I'm looking at it, I'm a dollar and cents guy, a business guy, so I'm looking at it from that perspective. Here's some of the things I will tell you. If you look at our general fund budget, our largest portion of it is property tax. But here's one of the issues. We have a county property tax share agreement with San Joaquin County, and unfortunately that tax share agreement is at an 80-20 split. What that means is 80% of your property taxes actually are going to San Joaquin County, and the city of Manteca only receives 20% after everybody is done. And a lot of people don't realize that, and that's where the issue is. Unfortunately, this is why development keeps on happening and we keep on running out of money and don't have enough money for all the services and amenities that we all want in our community. So our first fight will be, no matter who gets elected, the fight should be going forward is to fight the county and get that agreement changed. Stanislaus County currently is at 50-50. So it's been done. So that needs to be changed. And that will bring money back into this community that you guys are paying for. So that's my first aspect. The next thing is CFDs in Belarus. Our current CFDs in Belarus, and we were working through this, they're pushing for, they were only paying for parks and streetlights. And our goal is to expand those CFDs when I just told you the largest expense of our general fund is public safety. So our CFDs will include public safety, include streets. That way development is paying its ways. So that's the next way of how to get more funding to actually take care of some of those issues that we're talking about. And the final one that's not always popular, but I will still say it because it needs to happen in one way or another, is currently we have a sales tax measure that we all pay. It's called Measure M, and it's a 0.5 cent sales tax. Currently today, that funds 18 police officers, and 18 firefighters. And I had put a proposal out that if everything else, and we show you all our finances for the next 2 years and everything else works, is that we look at potentially raising that half cent to another quarter cent. So that will allow us to hire 9 more police officers and 9 more firefighters. Currently today, we have a population of 88,000 and we have 76 police officers in the city. And we want to bring that up. Now, if we increase it by a quarter cent, what that's gonna allow us to do is, this is not just a normal tax, it's allocated just for public safety. There's actually a public oversight committee that makes and ensures that every dollar of that tax goes just to public safety. So there is oversight on that aspect. The other thing that I had brought up was that we're not just gonna do a tax and just let it be. We're gonna actually put a sunset on it on the backside. We did an agreement with Great Wolf when they came into this community, which is a 20-year TOT tax sharing agreement with their transient occupancy tax. My goal is to, if we do enact this increase in Measure M, it will allow, and we will put a 20-year sunset. So right when Great Wolf's agreement is done, it would supplement the tax and then the tax can go away. That's another avenue of how we can get funding for this city to ensure the safety of our community. There's a lot more other things, but I don't want to take too much time, and I want to be, cordial to Mayor Cantu also, so we can both come up here and you guys let us have it.
A lot of what Gary just said, we feel the same. We're working towards those goals as well. We differ a little bit, but essentially we vote the same. 99% of the time, we vote the same on virtually everything. And I can just say ditto to everything he said, frankly. Questions?
I have one. It's kind of a two-part question. Okay, for this navigation center, we get a $16 million grant. Where does the other 3 or 4 million come from that's gonna pay for the remainder balance on that? And then also, how do you attract those people that don't really want to use the help? How are you gonna go out in the community and get them to go into this navigation? Because obviously they gotta follow rules and all of those things, and a lot of people don't wanna do that. So that's my two-part question.
The first part of your question was an additional 3,000 or 3 million?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the quote was like 19 million to 20 million for the completion of that navigation center, and you said you had 16 million in the grant.
Right.
So where does that remainder come from?
The city has the other 3 million.
They have that in the coffers for it.
Right. I personally myself, I'm a building designer. I have been for 50 years. I don't think it's going to cost $16 million to build.
Okay.
The navigation center. Now, as Gary mentioned, there's going to be transitional housing and affordable housing elements to the overall project. Now, those will take a good portion of that 16 million or $20 million. But the navigation center itself can be developed for far less than that.
But what about the annual operating cost of it?
That has to be worked into the budget.
Yeah.
Now,
So has that got pushed to be across from, what is it, the coat factory in that big area? Is that where it's gonna be?
It's 8 acres.
Yeah, it's on Carnegie Court in the industrial lot.
Yeah.
So first of all, what we did is that we created a plan originally as looking at, there's a plan A navigation center, there's a plan B, and there's a plan C. So it's like the minimum, a little bit better, and the best, the Disneyland of navigation centers. That's not our goal, okay? Our goal is to build the minimum of what we need to make sure we can handle and change our ordinance. So, but when we went to the state and asked for funding, which was closer to $20 million, we gave them the optimal. So that way we can ask for the most
Right,
amount of
you wanna
money.
get the most,
Okay, so it comes down to funding. So The goal is never to spend the $16 million to build the navigation center. The goal is to get it done for a lot cheaper and build what the minimum amount is needed. So I don't think there's gonna be a shortfall, honestly. We were just asking for the maximum amount so we can, because look, we asked for 20, we got 60. If we would have asked for maybe only, we needed 10, if we asked for only 10, we probably would have gotten 5.
Yeah, you're not gonna get that.
Right? So that's why we went strategically that way of why we got the 16. Now, annual costs. Even if we started today, this is not gonna get built tomorrow. Okay, we're still probably 2 years out. That's if nobody yells and screams at us and tries to sue us to stop it. We have annual grants, federal grants, CBD block grants that we currently use for the tent, for a lot of our projects and services within for the homeless community. Now, once we have a centralized location, we won't need to be using those funds for those other places. Those funds can be moved back into the annual cost of a navigation center. And I honestly feel, because of all the money that we use that we don't see in the background, because it just kind of happens with public safety responses and everything, those savings are gonna help us take those funding and move it back into running the navigation center.
So, you know, I have a question here, but first let me say, it sounds like, I'm glad that both of you are serving the city of Manteca. It sounds like you're working in partnership, and that's great. And it sounds like you both have a handle on this going forward. That's wonderful for the city. The question I have, one of the questions I have, is that it's a 4-year term. Are you fully committed to work as mayor for the 4 years, and what percentage of your time will you devote to that job of mayor?
Well, so definitely, I'm committed today. You know, I have served this community for 6 years on the council, and I couldn't tell you, they say it's a part-time job, but it's really not a part-time job. I feel like, and you can ask my wife, because she hates me for it, but you know, it is a full-time job, and I would say I spend over 40 hours a week doing this. But I'm very passionate about this community. I'm committed to this community. So I don't know what the future holds, but today, yes, I am on board to serve this community. And may it be as mayor, hopefully the mayor, but even as a council, because I still have 2 more years on the council. So I'm committed either way. But yes, priority comes for Manteca, and I've shown that in my track record.
And just a follow-up question before Dan answers, because I noticed you're in real estate, so that's a little bit of a concern for me, because, you know, some of the conflicts of interest and that kind of thing.
Right.
And the amount of time that you have to devote to being a mayor versus running your business. Could you speak a little bit?
Yeah, and it's always a challenge. But the good thing is that, you know, being in that type of business, I can work around my schedule. Yes, I'm not retired, but I am a working council member today, but I can set meetings around schedules of what the council's requires and what my personal business requires. As far as any conflict of interest, I would say that I have never, you know, looked at that. If there's things that come up in our council agendas or anything, I've made it very clear up front. There's times that we've recused ourselves. Both of us have, you know, had issues where we recused ourselves. We hold that as a highest priority. That's never been an issue. And I clear that with our city attorney before even an agenda comes out. Do you want to switch to mayor or still me?
Well, let
Well,
Ben.
maybe he can finish with the
Yeah,
mayor.
Ben needs to answer the question.
I've actually been committed to the city for about 45 years, so.
And I wasn't one.
Yeah, I actually, over the years, have probably attended hundreds of planning commission meetings and city council meetings. I ran the planning commission meeting for staff for those 34 years that I was there, so I did that. So yeah, I'm committed to the city. And as far as sharing time between City Hall and my job, I'm retired, but not really. I have an office, and I do land use consulting, land use planning, consulting, and building design. So I'm always working. I can have projects in San Jose or Stockton or Modesto or San Joaquin County, wherever. I've been up as far as Sacramento. But, Gary is right, it takes a lot of time. I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. I'm actually solving problems while I'm sleeping, believe it or not. It just,
We dream about this stuff.
there's a reality of that. I'm committed to it, always have been, and, when I think there's a problem, I, push the issue. I push the issue at council meetings, I push the issue with staff, because if you let government lead, it'll take forever to get anything done. And I know that because I worked for the city for 34 years, but as a private, businessman, I don't tolerate wasting time, so I push the issue. Did I answer all your
Yeah,
questions?
thank you.
Okay. And you had a question back there?
Yes, I did. I wanted to speak to Gary because he brought up the issue of homelessness. I recently moved here from Brentwood, California. I was a 20-plus year resident of Discovery Bay, Brentwood area. We did not see any homelessness in that area. You mentioned that you had reached out to Stockton, Lodi, and areas near Sacramento. They all have homeless people camped out near the freeways and other areas. Would you be willing to reach out to Brentwood and Discovery Bay and see what they're doing? Because they don't have that issue.
You know, Gary, I hear that all the time, and I'm sure you hear it all the time. You know, I get a comment all the time, well, Ripon doesn't have any homeless. Well,
No, I'm not saying they don't have any homeless, and they're not visible. I
they're
mean,
not,
they don't
right,
have-
and that's what I told them, is, you know, even Ripon has homeless, you just don't see them.
I'm saying they're not visible.
So no, I think maybe what you misheard was I wasn't saying that those communities, we contacted because they don't have homeless or don't have homeless. What I was talking about is our county. So just the major cities in San Joaquin County, moving forward with a navigation center was that each one of those cities is also building a facility. It's not just Manteca. So that way, if we built one in Manteca, it wouldn't mean that we're gonna attract the homeless from Tracy and Lodi and Stockton, because they're also gonna have a facility in their community. So that's what that was from. As far as, talking to communities that may not have a homeless issue as much as us, I would, love to hold that out there. Even when we decided on the navigation center, we just didn't dream this up, and said suddenly, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We actually went and did our homework. We visited many other communities in Southern California and other places to see how they run theirs and what can they do and what can we do better and take a little piece out of everybody's, the way they run it, and then bring that to Manteca so that we can truly help the individuals that want the help, and then have law enforcement help take the other ones that don't.
Right, so my question, just to get back to it, I'm asking you, would you be willing to reach out? If you become our mayor, will you reach out to them, see what they're doing, and bring that
Yeah.
to Manteca?
No, definitely. If I can solve the issue without having to build anything or having to spend any money, I would love to. And I have no problem reaching out to any community, understanding what programs they have or what do they do to, help the homeless, definitely.
Okay.
For me or?
For both of you.
Okay,
So-
I'll let you start.
Let me,
Oh, okay.
as Harry mentioned, we did a lot of research. As an individual, don't like reinventing the wheel. There are a lot of communities out there that have programs, and as he said, we've taken a little bit from every one of them. So, the unique thing about our navigation center is, it's going to include, elements that include like, counseling, drug addiction counseling, medical facilities. And I don't mean, when I say medical, I don't mean we're gonna have a medical facility. We're gonna have the county come in and provide those social services in our facility. So the entire program starts from bringing them in to the facility and then providing them with the bed, the food, and the social things they need to improve their lifestyle and put them back into a lifestyle that's with the rest of society. That's why we have a transitional housing. So they go from staying in the dormitory to a tiny house or whatever it is. And then when they've found a job and spent some time and have some money in their pockets and stuff, they then move into the affordable housing units, and then so on and so on. So it's not simply providing them a bed. This is gonna be an entire program. We're gonna put them back in society with the rest of us.
Oh, yes, so I think the idea of the center is a good one, so that you can enforce the no camping, and, you know, you will have that place to bring people, and that will clean up things. My question is, why was that location chosen? Main Street in that area, you know, is kind of run down. I mean, it's not like your typical little downtown area with nice cafes and little shops and things. It's pretty run down, and now adding that there, I think it's going to diminish the quality of the downtown area where a lot of people do still go to shop.
Okay, well, let me explain what the layout's gonna be. Okay, it's an 8-acre parcel with frontage on Main Street, and there's a court, Carnegie Court on the back end. So the navigation center will be on the back end at the court. In between the navigation center and Main Street, there will be affordable housing. On the frontage, we haven't decided yet, but it could be a police station or it could be a commercial shopping center. So I know that the residents, in particular, one or two people in that area, have complained about the navigation center in their neighborhood. The reality is that the navigation center is gonna be at the far end, and once you build the apartments and the police station, you're not even gonna know it's there. It's not in their neighborhood.
Okay, so it's gonna be more on industrial back? going
Yeah,
back
so
that way?
let me add to that. So the navigation sits on Carnegie Court. There actually will be a masonry wall right through the middle of that property. That will be 7 feet. So there actually is no direct connection or access to the facility from Main Street.
Main Street, yeah.
So the only access to it will be from the industrial side, Carnegie Court. So actually it's further away from those individuals' homes than that location today. So, and then on the front end of that wall is looking at transitional housing, affordable housing, and even those, you know, what our stigma of what affordable housing is not necessarily what we may be thinking. If you go on 120 and Atherton and you see those apartments, Atherton apartments, the far end of those apartments, those are actually affordable housing apartments. They don't look like it, they look like market rate. That's what normal modern day affordable housing looks like now. It's not run down. It's actually probably gonna help the area, like you said, across the street. And then if we look at the front end on Main Street, building that, or even looking at a potential police station. Our current police station was built in 1976, and Ben probably helped plan it.
I was there.
And you know, it was a population of 22,000 people in the city. And today we are 88,000 and we still have the same police station.
The
So we-
same police, same structure.
Yes.
Can you imagine all the additional police fitting in the same structure?
So we need
in
one.
1976.
So that's why we had put a plan out and said, yeah, I know you may not like to see the navigation center in industrial, but no matter where we put it, somebody's gonna say we don't want it here. And, or they'll say, put it in the middle of nowhere. Well, you gotta understand, we are the city of Manteca, we don't own land in the county. And then we have no access, and then we can't go back to enforcing an anti-camping ordinance because we don't have it in our jurisdiction. So it's gonna be in the industrial area, and in the front end, you may potentially have a police station. So what's wrong with having a police station across the street from your home?
I don't think that was ever presented
There was-
before.
yeah.
We
the
have
police
presented
station
it
idea
multiple
never
times, it's
come up.
just, that gets buried because they wanna keep on
Yeah.
talking about the other issues.
Yeah, it's just the navigation thing. I never knew that.
Now, what about the fulfillment center that's there on industrial? Is that being incorporated in? I understand that was a place where the homeless could get food and clothing.
Oh, you're talking about the tent?
Tent.
The
Yeah,
tent.
you're talking
So
about.
that's the Qualix building, that's a 555 industrial. It's actually an old Kodak plant. And in the parking lot, we have put that tent. You gotta remember, that is a temporary warming, cooling center. It is not a permanent facility.
Okay.
So that would go away once we build
Yeah, it would
this.
be in the other.
And that,
Oh, I see.
and we're actually in the process of working through that, so that wouldn't stay anymore. And then that property actually could be sold at that point. So, and actually currently, right now, the school district is interested in purchasing that property, basically from ourselves, because the state owns it, and using it as a warehouse space for the school district.
So what's being done to improve the running of the city government? Because it's more than just about homeless, although homeless is extremely important. I get really upset when I see the homeless myself. I know we need to do something about that, but it's such a complex problem. But it sounds like we're moving in the right direction. But, you know, there's parks and recreation, there's economic development, there's those kinds of, what are we doing to improve city government in general?
Well, before you say, I wanna, say one other thing about the homeless center, or the navigation center. The property was cheap, because we in one hat or another, the city owned the 8 acres, so we didn't have to buy
Right.
the property. So, that played into how we chose the location. We reviewed what happened.
Yeah, we looked at about 8 locations originally. This just didn't show up now. This has been in the works for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And we looked at multiple locations and looked at, you know, what kind of effects would have with each location until we arrived at this. And it was called a redevelopment agency that owned a lot of these properties. And this was remnants of that. So basically, we kind of own it in a background way. So that's that. Now, you were saying, how are we gonna move forward in improving the city in other aspects? So originally, first we had talked, I had thrown some things out there of how we're gonna create revenue. And not just look at, 64% of our budget is public safety. We need more funding to do other things within the city. So there's that on one side, definitely like I've talked about already. But the other thing is, I think, and you just touched on it, economic development is very important. And that's how we're gonna be sustainable in the long run. We need to figure out how to bring more commercial industrial growth in the city and have sales tax revenue that's sustainable and not just rely on property tax and development of building more homes. So that's really gonna be the key, is moving forward, we need to look at how we're gonna actively, and I do this as a living today, market the city to everybody over the hill and say, bring it here, we have the land. We have your workforce. So do the work here and bring your companies and things here, and we will help you facilitate how to get your services and economic development into the city. The biggest thing I've seen in commercial real estate is that a lot of individuals, and you'll probably agree with this too, is that they're not necessarily looking for a tax deal with the city saying, what breaks you're gonna give us to come to the city. A lot of times, a lot of these companies are looking at, how fast are you gonna get me? What's my time to market? How fast are you gonna get me if I say I wanna come to your city and get me my permits in my hand and ready to basically break ground and then open? That's what we're gonna work on, offering that. We're gonna work with our planning department and streamline those processes, saying, hey, we want this, whoever it is, in here, how long are you gonna give us? And you know what? We want it done in 90 days. We want it done in 60 days. There's no more 1-2 years to get something here.
But Manteca's always been a bedroom community, and all
Right,
you're
but we
doing.
need to shift.
I know, but all you've been doing for all these years that we've been here, which is 21, is build housing. There's no infrastructure for
Nope.
anything else.
No restaurants?
I mean, Great
Yes.
Wolf
You know.
was finally something. I mean, when they called Bass Pro a destination, I had to laugh. I mean, really.
You're absolutely right. And
So
we-
what is your plan for it? Because it's been 21 years
Well,
of nothing,
That is the problem.
other than taxing us.
Well, the community itself, the focus of City Hall and the councils for decades has been houses. That is the lifeblood of the community when it comes to City Hall. When I was elected, that needed to change because the economic balance of the city, in order to be a sustaining, self-sustaining city hall and community, you have to have a balance. And that balance includes commerce and industry and jobs. If your focus is always houses, like it's been here, then we end up with the financial problems we have today.
Well, that's the thing, you built all these houses,
Well,
you continue to issue permits, but you don't have the police to go up and down the streets
Right,
and
exactly.
patrol those houses.
Let me give you the answer. The answer to that question is the same question that I've heard for 20 years. I was gonna say 40, but for 20 years, is that there's never enough money for the police, for the parks, for fixing the roads or whatever it is. And the reason that we don't have it is because it's always houses. And because we only get 20% of the property taxes from a house, that house is actually costing the city more money to provide the services. We're losing money every single house that's built in this town. I ran for mayor to fix that problem. My first day, I spoke to staff, and by the way, that staff is gone because they didn't want to hear it. But in order to fix that problem, you have to have an economic development department. I pushed for 3 years to get them to fund and actually have a department that deals with economic development. We just hired a economic development manager. It took 3 years to get that one person, and her job is going to be, as Gary noted, is find businesses to come here.
So what took 3 years?
What's that?
Why did it take 3 years?
It took 3 years for 2 reasons. One, you had to change the culture of City Hall and the mentality of the people that work there. It took me 2 years to do that. And I didn't fire anybody, by the way. Everybody tells me that I fired them. I did not fire them. They voluntarily left when they were asked to leave. And the other part is you have to have something to offer the people, and Gary's right. If it takes you 2 years to go through a plan check process to develop a piece of property, you're losing money.
No one's gonna be
Time is money. Time is
That's the thing,
money.
we've been here for 22 years just about, and like I said, the housing has just blown up. There's
It's
no good
crazy.
restaurants to go to, there's no
And let me-
economy.
let
We
me
go
say-
out of town to spend the
Yeah.
money instead of
Everybody
spending it
does.
here.
Let me say
Everybody
this.
spends it out of
The
town.
problem, the house problem is so bad that we have over 12 years supply of approved lots already on the books. So if we didn't approve another tentative subdivision map for 10 years, we still have 12-year supply of lots already on the books, okay? The focus has always been houses. The focus has never been economic development. And the light bulb never came on in all these decades that the same swimming pool that I learned to swim decades ago, and I'm 71, decades ago, is the same pool we have today. Okay, why do we have the same pool? the light bulb never came on, you know, we need a community pool. And if the light bulb came on, well, we can't afford it. Why can't we afford it? Nobody asked the question, why can't we afford it? It's a simple checkbook thing. So, anyway, I'm
Why
sorry.
hasn't it, if San Joaquin County is taking 80%,
Well, let me say.
why hasn't anybody
Okay,
going
well,
after that?
I
As soon as
asked
we
staff,
change that.
I asked
Yeah.
staff to go to the county and negotiate new terms. And the council directed staff to do that. When I retired in 2006, something happened. Because before then, it was 80-20 in the other direction. I don't know what happened. But I came back to City Hall and they're telling me it's now 80-20 in the other direction. Well, no wonder you can't do anything. So I asked them to go ahead and negotiate. And so far, the county is receptive to negotiating. And the last conversation I had with this interim city manager is that they're looking favorably at 40-60.
How did that get flipped? I mean, is it something that people voted on, or is it something they
No,
decided to do?
That was not an issue that was voted on by the residents. That was something that took place at City Hall.
Yeah, just like our pockets a little bit more.
So, all right, so there's a bunch of things there.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the economic development side. Definitely, you know, that's where my goal is to shift. It has been too easy to just continue building homes. And so that's why it keeps on happening. You're right, what's the use of building all these houses and all these individuals moving to our city if we're not capturing their income?
Yeah, they're just going.
And they're
out of town.
spending their money elsewhere, and they basically just come here to sleep.
Exactly.
That's exactly.
And that's
it.
the problem.
Yep.
And that's why we need to push actively to go seek those developments, seek those companies out there, and not just keep on talking about it. And that's the goal here. Really, that's gonna be the transition, and it needs to happen. Now, the other side of it is that 80-20, it's actually been around for a long time. It actually, some of our old developments in this community are at a 90-10. It's even worse. And the reason is back in the days, and you know, Mayor Cantu, you'll probably remember, is that Tracy, Manteca, Lathrop was kind of the boonies. There was nothing here.
Yeah.
So you made these agreements with the county as part of a tax sharing agreement for annexations to bring development into these cities. And I think one of the aspects probably happened, and I wasn't around, but so they were enticing and they said, okay, you know, we're gonna have all this infrastructure that needs to come because of all of this annexations. So they made these deals. Well, since then and now, things have changed. South County, these three cities, is where the development is. This is not the boonies anymore. And we're basically developing for the whole county and paying for all of the county services. So nobody went back and actually looked at that agreement and said, hey, we should probably change this now. And the first time I heard about it, I remember I sat in council and I said, why do we keep on losing money after everything if we're charging development fees? We're doing all of these things correctly and we're bringing all these homes here. Where's the money going? And so the big shift was actually about 5 years ago, is that the first big win for us was when I brought this up, is that we have a development called Griffin Park. Griffin Park is on the corner of Woodward and Main Street.
Yep.
That's when we went and fought the county the first time and changed just for that development to a 60-40 split.
No?
And that's where, now taking that into consideration, that's what we're gonna use to go fight them and say, hey, it needs to become permanent or even better. And it's gonna get political because you have supervisors. And, but yes, it has been an oversight. And also I think it's also an effect on who the council was made up of in the past, and having business people and people that understand funding and money makes a difference. And at the end of the day, looking at the numbers. And I think we just kept on sitting in this revolving door circle of just doing the same thing over and over again. And that's what unfortunately brought us to here. And we need to change.
Yeah, big time.
Well, I just want, we're talking about the commercial, situation. There is an empty shopping plaza here in Manteca and no stores. We have to drive out of town to go to the stores.
So you're
Why-
probably talking about the promenades, right?
Yeah, J.C. Penney.
Okay, yeah, this one's, we both hate this one.
That's been big
So,
for years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a little history lesson on the promenades, and I know you're gonna be all on board with this one. Promenades, so Bass Pro Shop, Destination, all this stuff is gonna come. They're gonna, make this indoor mall and outdoor space, and basically kind of like what Livermore Outlets is. That was kind of the goal with the promenades. Okay. Unfortunately, what happened is at that time, when they came to market, it was 2008, and the recession hit. Okay, and all those deals and everything they were doing didn't work out. And luckily, they had already signed Bass Pro Shop. They had the theater, they had the hotel,
And the pen.
and Red Robin, and J.C.
And
Penney,
the Penney.
and Best Buy at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
Then they died too.
yeah.
So that came in. And then afterwards, unfortunately, the company that owns promenades, it's Pope Development. They're out of Tennessee. We actually went and met them. Don't like the guy. And just letting you know. But, they own like 30, 40 of these throughout the nation. And this is probably actually one of their smallest centers that they own. Unfortunately, as much as you don't want to hear this, they don't really care about Manteca. And for them, that center is actually a tax write-off.
Yep.
And they're purposely not filling it because they don't want to fill it. I've called multiple times. I remember at one time when Best Buy closed, I called them because I had Yard House interested in that building. They never returned my call. And their current leasing rate is at $25 a square foot in this city. That's impossible, okay? I don't think people even pay that in San Francisco. And if you look at Stadium Center where Costco is, look at these two centers, very different, right? It's full. They don't have anything available. The rate there is about $3.50 a square foot. $25, $3.50. Do you think they really want to get it leased out? The other problem is, as a city, we can't force them to lease it out because it's privately owned. The city doesn't own it. The city doesn't, they have private property rights. That's unfortunately why it isn't what it is. The other problem is, we created a boarded and vacant ordinance in the city and said basically, if, your buildings look dilapidated, there's issues, you can, we're gonna start fining you. Well, the problem is they really take care of the place. It looks nice and clean. So can't hit them with that either. We use that for our downtown. That's why you're seeing the changes and some of the changes that are coming in our downtown. We created a board vacant ordinance that allows our downtown basically saying you either gotta pull a permit to fix the building up, you gotta put it up for sale or for lease. And because of that, that's why you're seeing some of the changes that are happening in our downtown. Because if you don't do any of those, we're gonna start fining you $1,000 a day.
So it sounds to me like you need Pacific IRS on it because.
I wish,
They
yeah.
should be getting all those write-offs.
Does anybody know the direct line? Because whenever I call the IRS, they don't ever pick up the phone.
Public safety, I know this is a real sensitive area, public safety, I know we're all in favor of public safety, you got the police and the fire. And it's a real sensitive issue, but, and I've worked in city government a long time myself. And, the one department that gets a lot of benefits, sometimes way overboard, you gotta stay on your toes to keep them, from overdoing it, is you just, 64% of the city budget is public safety. Well, these folks get overtime, double overtime, triple overtime, those kinds of things. They have excellent retirement benefits, excellent pay, all kinds of things, and they keep pushing for more. Now, I'm for police and I'm for firefighters, obviously we all are. But, you gotta be careful with them because they overdo it. And we can't allow them to keep taxing the taxpayers for all these benefits that they want.
You kind of sound like us when we're sitting there in closed session doing union labor agreements, going, what the heck? What do you want now?
Yep, you know.
Yeah, but can you speak to how we can make sure that they don't, I mean, they've got excellent jobs, I mean, you know, they've got, you know,
Yeah.
dangerous jobs, yes.
Well, I use the term, you know, we could do a Ronald Reagan on them. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Air
Yeah.
patrol, traffic and all that, because I'm fed up with it as well. You know, we give them a little bit, and they come back in 2 weeks, well, we need something more, you know? Okay, we'll give it to you. Come back in 2 weeks, they want something more. I'm done with it. We have a meeting next Tuesday. I'm done with it. You know, they are well paid. You know what, I'm not even gonna get into it.
Yeah, you know,
So,
I'm in
I
this
will
side.
say it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
You gotta understand, yes, as much as they do get paid, one of the biggest issues we're having right now is hiring
Yes.
for those positions, because a lot of
Okay.
people don't wanna be cops right now,
Yeah.
especially here. And then also, we are sitting there battling some of the other cities against what they pay, and so when officers are deciding, do they wanna, you know, go work for Ripon, do they wanna go work for Manteca, do they wanna go work for Pleasanton, Livermore?
Yeah, we've actually raised salaries to allow them to come to us. We were losing people. We had to raise the fees.
Well, I'm gonna just be very direct, and I know that the police department, fire department have endorsed you. To me, it's, you know, red flag to me, because, what did you promise them? I'm sorry, but you know, I need to know that, because, like, as I said, 64% of our budget goes to public safety. They've got, you know, great benefits, great pay. Are you promising to give them another big raise, or what? I mean,
Is that an endorsement?
It was endorsement and pay raise question.
Can I just interject something?
well, I want him to answer the question.
He's looking.
Oh, all right.
You want me to answer?
Yeah, I can't answer your question.
I'm sorry, Greg.
No, I have not promised them a raise. End of the day, you also have to remember, the mayor is 1 out of 5. I just can't give them a raise as one person. Even both of us together can't give them a raise. You need majority to agree to anything that happens at the council. I think they see my track record. I think they are seeing that I'm here for the future. I don't think it's necessarily, there's no backroom deal, you know, special things that are going on, and when it comes to, you know, giving them raises or things like that. I've been supportive of public safety, we both have. But, you know, what I did say was that, look, I'm another guy, I'm not just looking at raises and things about hiring bodies and all that. I also feel that we can help our public safety be more efficient. And that is with technology. I'm a big technology guy, being a young guy, you know, cameras, different ways that we can make their job easier and do more with less. And that's really one of my other goals to shift. And I've talked to them, making sure you have good equipment, make sure you have the background of, you know, our systems that work when it comes to communications, and how do we make them more efficient in their job, not just necessarily more bodies and more pay. And yes, it's a tough question all the time. We've said it multiple times. You ask for a raise, but guess what? If I can take some of that away, I can hire another body. Just because you get a raise doesn't mean that you're gonna now start working harder, right? You're still gonna work the same amount of hours, and now what's unfortunately allowing me to not do is hire more bodies. It's gonna get to a point where if I keep on paying the current people more and more money and never hire any more, they're gonna burn out. So that's why there has to be a shift. And that's why I was very clear to that. I'd rather spend more money growing our force, not just paying the ones that are there more.
Well, my experience with the police and fire is they're very tough negotiators.
Yes, they are.
Unless they know you're gonna do something for them, they're not gonna leave behind you.
And, you know, and I don't disagree with what Gary just said. I feel the same way. But I did not get endorsed by, well, I hardly got endorsed by anybody. I think I only got one endorsement. But it's not because Gary and I differ in what we do and how we look at things. I work for the whole community. I don't work for special interest groups. So I did not go out and seek any endorsements because frankly, I don't wanna own anybody. I'm for the whole community. When I look at something, I'm looking at the budget, what can we afford? I'm looking at what the community needs. I'm always balancing, you know, I was just telling you earlier, at 2 o'clock in the morning, my brain is working on things. I'm balancing the books, I'm balancing what the community needs, what staff wants and what staff needs, and where we're gonna be 20 and 30 years from now. And my wife, she knows for a fact that that's what I do all the time. So, it gripes me that the police department, you know, is willing to sacrifice their own officers in the event the economy goes south and we have to lay off people. They volunteered their people to get laid off. And you know what? If that happens, it's gonna be from the top down, not the bottom up. And it gripes me that they think they hold us hostage, when in fact, the community is their loss. So, anyway, there was another question. Yes.
I have a,
Oh, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna state that, we lived in Stockton for many years, and one of the things that they, suggested was raising the sales tax to hire more police officers. And they raised it to 9%, you know, everybody thought, yes, public safety, we need more police officers. They have not been able to hire and retain that maximum number of police officers that they are budgeted for. So my point is that we have a difficult time retaining police officers because they're always looking at other cities and what they can make, and they're willing to commute and make more money. You have the same problem with teachers, you have the same problem with nurses and doctors, you know, it's nothing new. Everybody wants to make as much as they can. But I just wanna mention that raising the sales tax did not work. You know, we're still paying in Stockton 9% sales tax, and they don't have enough police officers.
Yeah, when I, was running for mayor 4 years ago, and I recognized, remember the scale, the balance that I mentioned earlier. In order to balance that scale, the city needs to generate additional funds. Okay, and there are different methods in which to create those additional new funds that we currently don't have. Sales tax is one. I personally feel we need to spend more money on economic development and bring the sales tax here as opposed to raising the sales tax we have now. That is a solution. I don't think that that's a long-term solution. The long-term solution is balancing that scale. Less houses, more jobs, more commerce, okay? And negotiating the property tax and all of that. Once that occurs, then we have the money to provide all the services we need. But simply raising the sales tax to hire more police doesn't take care of the parks. It doesn't take care of all the other services. It doesn't rebuild the library or a swimming pool or a rec center or fix the roads. Okay, yes, we need to have more police and more fire. But it doesn't us no good to have 100 police officers when the roads are full of potholes and the parks are not getting mowed, and we're still in a library that was built in the 80s, and our population is like tripled. So we need to look at other resources for revenue than just sales tax.
So yeah, that's why when I was mentioning it, it was actually the last resort. It's not the first option. We have to look at all the other avenues of building our general fund before we get to the sales tax portion. And of course, we wouldn't be implementing a sales tax measure if we don't already have people ready to go getting hired. If we already can't fill our current vacancies, we wouldn't be implementing to get more funding. The idea is that all of our current vacancies are filled, and we actually have people waiting in line wanting to work for the city of Manteca. That's how we would move forward. It's not just, hey, just give us more money and then we'll figure it out. So that's why I looked at that as the last side of once everything else is done.
Okay, first of all, I just want to, on behalf of the collective, thank you both very much for coming. It's greatly appreciated. Mayor Cantu, earlier you said you were 71 years old. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr.
Singh.
Singh.
I don't
You
sing.
keep talking about your age, so I'm super curious. How old are you?
So I just turned 40.
40, okay. Not a political question, but I was curious. Thank you.
I will tell you my age.
So I have a question back to the homeless. How many people will this transition center accommodate?
Yep.
So the navigation center, so currently the last homeless count, we were at 165 homeless individuals in the city of Manteca.
Yeah, and 3 years ago it was 218.
Correct. So the council has not decided yet on how big it's gonna be, the navigation center, or how many individuals. Goal is to look at what's the minimum amount that we're willing to do that will allow us to do all the other things that we wanna do and change our ordinance. The goal is not to oversize and overbuild it. The goal is to get what we need.
Yeah, the way it actually works is the 9th District Federal Court, the 9th District Federal Court said that you have to allow the homeless to sleep on public property, or camp on public property, unless you can provide them with a bed. Okay?
In your jurisdiction.
Yeah, in your jurisdiction. So, 3 years ago it was 218. Now it's 165. That doesn't mean you have to provide 165 beds. We could provide 50 beds or 60 beds. As long as the police officer can offer them a bed, that works. Then we can afford the rules. The rumor is we're going to have 250 beds, and it's going to be a regional center. I don't know where that came from, but the council has never said anything like that. It's probably going to be 50 beds or thereabouts, and it's not a regional center, it's just Manteca, because all the rest of the cities have their own.
Shouldn't accommodate more since there's so many homeless.
Well,
I
we
mean,
all,
are you gonna have a special place for the women and children?
yes, there'll be women and children, there'll be men, and then there'll be women alone. Families, yeah.
So yes.
They bring their animals.
Yes,
Yeah.
they will be allowed to have, so one of the things
Yeah,
is,
we have to provide for their animals. We also have to keep their goods, whatever that is, for at least 90 days. 90 days, and if they're gone, we can then trash it. Otherwise, they have to take it with them. But the court has said there's things we have to do, and a lot of people would like to put them on a bus and send them to San Francisco. We can't do that.
Well, what's gonna keep, so what's gonna keep other cities?
So yeah, as far as the navigation center, the exact count is not there. But we also live in reality. We know that if we have 165 homeless people today, not everybody's gonna go, right? So you don't have to build one for everybody here. Even if 50% go, maybe that's what we built it for. That way, we're purposely, there will always be a bed available, so that way our anti-camping ordinance can be enforced. So we're not gonna build it for, technically you're supposed to have it for every individual that's homeless, that's, willing to go. So not everybody's gonna go, and that's reality, as much as it, and we're not saying, and I'm definitely not saying that this is gonna be the end-all be-all answer to homelessness. If anybody knows the answer to homeless, we'll take it and we'll implement it, please tell us. But it is a step in the right direction to move to the next point, because just herding them around our city is not working, and look at how much money we are spending every day. When they come in our convenience store, they hang out there. I call PD comes, moves them, then they jump from there to the Target Center, and an hour later, PD gets another call, and then they move them from there and goes to the Food for Less shopping center, and then you're just moving them around all day long. And look at those response times and the money and the time that's spent in the background doing that. And then having our solid waste division coming after and cleaning up after them. So that's the issue. We need to get away from this vicious circle, and we need to do something. So that's why we're moving forward with this.
You can look at staffing and the budget for your.
What, staffing and budget year for the navigation center?
Right.
That's still
At the minimum that you're talking about.
right. So I mean, we are working with. We just are in the process of hiring a homeless and housing manager for the city. That's going to help and also be really good with grant writing. That's one of our biggest aspects of this. The goal is not to, overstaff. It's going to be minimal. We might even hand it to another nonprofit that will help run it, and where we're not directly running everything ourselves. But looking at it, some of the ones we visited that are similar in size, it's probably right about $1 million all in on an annual basis. But we spend more than that on a tent right now, and so the money is there, and these are federal grants that we get currently. You had mentioned about who's allowed. So the idea is to have our biggest problem on our streets today is single male. Because there's no facilities out here. There's facilities for women with children, but there's nothing for single male. And so that's the idea, is to have a single male dorm, women dorm, and a family dorm, and accept pets and kennels, because that's one of the other roadblocks. Homeless individuals do not want to give up their pet, and they won't come. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to come in, so that way we can get them off our streets, and then they can start becoming, slowly through the programs and everything that will be offered, productive citizens, and eventually be on their own. That's our goal. And also, I live in reality. I also know that we just can't keep on arresting our way out of this either. We're gonna have to do something and change people's lives. And then, there will be individuals that don't get it, that are gonna have to go the other way. But there's gotta be that balance.
All right, great.
I see people falling asleep.
They're leaving on us now.
Didn't have lunch, it's past our bedtime.
What time is it?
It's 7:30.
So I think with that, I thank you for everyone coming.
Thank you for coming.
We'll stick around individually if you guys have questions or concerns.
Yeah, we have signs over here if you'd like to sign for your yard.
Oh, we're not allowed to put those.
Actually,
You're not allowed to put signs?
No, they just.
Yeah.
I just cleared it.
Common area